Power seems to be at the heart of a lot of this new, if I can put it this way, anger, this sort of desire to uproot everything. Why is it that we don't see the pursuit of power for the ugliness that it is? I mean, Acton was surely right. We should be wary of power. It does corrupt. And absolute power does tend towards absolute corruption. We don't seem to value things like love, harmony, community, turning the other cheek, forgiveness. They seem to be under ruthless attack as belonging to an era we despise, which enjoyed a Christian conception, consensus in terms of the way we viewed the world and our neighbour.
Well, one of the striking things about going to societies that are radically different from your own, and why it's worth doing, is because it can wipe you of some of your presumptions about what the natural state of mankind is.
Yeah.
You know? A lot of people in countries like Australia who think that, for instance, loving your neighbour is the natural default condition of people, have an awful shock coming to them, not just in their own countries where, of course, nobody can entirely live up to that very strenuous command, but in all sorts of countries and societies around the world where people act and behave differently, where the state of nature, as it were, is different. Our societies put a premium, or did put a premium in the past, as you mentioned earlier, the cricketer example, on magnanimity and victory, for instance. Humility in defeat, or graciousness in defeat, among other things. These are not the natural defaults. These are learned behaviors, learned because there was a deeper undertow beneath them that told you that these things were worthwhile. Charity, for instance, is not the state of nature of mankind to be charitable, let alone charitable to people you haven't even met and are very unlikely to meet. These are learned behaviors, taught behaviors, from a very specific tradition. That isn't to say that other traditions don't have elements of it themselves. They do. They have versions of it. But our societies today have become fixated in the post-Christian era, have become fixated on power as the primary dynamic and understanding mechanism for human society. And my view is, as I say in the part about Foucault in this book, I think this is a really deeply perverted way to look at society, where we interpret interest groups and others as forever scurrying to achieve power, and we entirely ignore what for most of us remain the more important drivers in our lives. If you were to say to somebody, what drives you? If you went up to the average person in Melbourne and said, what drives you? If they said power, you would step away slowly. More likely they would say something along the lines of love for my family, friends. They might have a wider group of people. They express that towards community, town, civic, perhaps even nation. They wouldn't say power. Now, the reason why we're bad at talking about this is, among other things, because it's a more embarrassing, icky thing to talk about than power. To purely look at power dynamics, are the men powerful over the women? Are white people powerful over people of color, and so on ad infinitum? Is it slightly easier to do than to talk about the flip side of that, which is love, forgiveness, charity, and more? And I think conservatives have been bad about talking about some of this, as other people have. Conservatives in recent decades have to a great extent thought that the point of their philosophy is to talk about the marketplace and economics and leave the rest.